Grace was a smart, outgoing, and funny girl. She was the top of her sophomore class and the captain of her cheer team. She volunteered at the dog shelters on Saturdays and babysat Sunday nights at her church. If you ask anyone who knew Grace, they would all say she was a great friend, a bright student, and a kind-hearted, ambitious young girl. At the beginning of her junior year, her parents agreed to let her have social media. Her parents trusted her to make wise decisions when it came to social media. Plus, all her other classmates had it. What possible harm could come from this? But during her junior year, her parents noticed a slow change in Grace. Soon, Grace started spending more and more time on her phone, hardly looking up from the screen to acknowledge the world around her. Instead of being outgoing, she became reserved. Instead of being funny, she stopped smiling. She lost her confidence, her grades started failing, and her weight started dropping. Grace would go days without eating, excusing her behavior by saying she just wasn't hungry. Her parents talked to her and soon found the origin of their daughter's troubles. Her problems came from two small words: social media. Grace explained how the people she followed on social media looked as if their lives were perfect. Their 5 vacations a year, their slim tight dresses, their tall skinny figures. Simply put, Grace felt as if her life lacked what the influencers' lives had. She wanted to go on more than 1 vacation a year. She wanted to be prettier. She wanted to be skinnier. She wanted to look like them. She wanted to be what the world and social media calls beautiful. Like Grace, so many young adults and teenagers have fallen into this trap where social media constantly pushes in their face. Due to the facade users create on social media, many teens and young adults have fallen into an unending spiral of body dysphoria, eating disorders, and poor mental health. In my speech, I will address how social media has negatively affected young people's mental health. First, I will define social media. Second, I will explain with specific examples how social media leads teens to body dysphoria, eating disorders, and poor mental health. Third, I will refute those who say social media has positively affected young people's mental health. Then, I will show a biblical perspective of the human body according to God and the Bible. Lastly, I will give examples of how we can help young people make wise decisions when it comes to social media. The topic of social media can be a very broad topic. To narrow down and to remove any confusion as to what social media is, let me define it for you. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines social media as forms of electronic communication such as websites, virtual networking, and microblogging, through which users create an online community to share information, ideas, personal images, and other content such as videos. Social media platforms include Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and WhatsApp. These are just a few of the more popularly used platforms among young adults and teenagers today. Due to the drastic growth of technology, the lives of young adults and teenagers are immersed with social media platforms. The author Lorian C. Abrams, the author of Public Health and the Era of Social Media, describes how social media has weaved its way into our lives. Social media platforms have become part of the fabric of the American life. Social media sites are the social institutions shaping out our modern lives. Not only are our teenagers using social media platforms, but their lives are being molded by the way social media sees it. Almost every person who has a device has some form of social media on that device. How do we know this to be true? We have simply observed it. Social network platforms almost tripled their total user base in the last decade, from 970 million in 2010 to the number passing 4.48 billion users in July of 2021. In fact, according to platform statements, the number of social media users in the US is 240 million in 2020, meaning 72.3% of Americans are actively using sites monthly. That was only 2 years ago in America. Imagine how many more people use social media platforms in the world today. Because our world has become obsessed with social media platforms, many teens and young adults have fallen prey to its traps and have become addicted to social media. In the article, Relationship Attachment Between Attachment Styles and Social Media Addiction Among Young Adults, Anam Yosaf defines social media addiction as a maladaptive behavioral compulsion or dependency. In other words, teens are depending on social media to find hope and fulfillment, but they're left incomplete and unsatisfied. Our youth are wasting hours scrolling through pages that display a life of false perfection. By displaying a facade of perfect life and perfect body, social media platforms have deceived young adults and teenagers into thinking they are flawed and enslaved them to body dysphoria. What is body dysphoria? The article Compassion-Focused Based Intervention for Treating Body Dysphoria Amongst College Students in Goa explains it as when a person views themselves as being larger or smaller as compared to their real body image. They often have impacted self-esteem because of their image, and their mental state is drastically affected. In other words, those who struggle with body dysphoria see themselves as either overweight or underweight. For example, a 5'5" girl at the age of 18 should be between a healthy weight of 114 pounds and 149 pounds. If she struggles with body dysphoria, she will see herself as either being overweight and tries to unnecessarily lose weight, or underweight and tries to unnecessarily gain weight. Either way, she struggles with body dysphoria. Because social media platforms are photo-based platforms, many people often post pictures which display a false reality, a reality in which their lives and bodies look perfect. Young adults and teenagers who swipe through these perfect body photos develop body dysphoria, hating and wanting to change their own bodies. In the article, Protect Me From My Selfie, examining the association between photo-based social media behaviors and self-reported eating disorders in adolescents, Lonergan writes, "Unfortunately, social media posts have a powerful impact on how we see ourselves. Flawed. Particularly if we spend hours each day comparing ourselves to the ideal body. We scroll through photos on smartphones to figure out which body we'd like to clone. Social media has in no way uplifted young adults and teenagers. Instead of teaching them to appreciate and to love the body God gave them, it teaches them to hate that body and to want a different body." In a personal interview I conducted with a teen, I asked her if she ever found herself comparing her life and body to those she saw on social media. She simply answered, yes. Not only does she find herself comparing her life and body, she also says social media is toxic, degrading, and vulgar. Social media calls today's youth with the promise of fun, followers, and fame, but only leads them into a life of body dysphoria and unsatisfaction. Because of the body dysphoria caused by social media platforms, young adults and teens seek to change their appearances, but often go about it the wrong way and end up with eating disorders that rule and consume their lives. One well-known eating disorder is anorexia, which is an eating disorder caused by a desire to lose weight while not eating. This lack of eating often leads to detrimental health problems. In the article Public Health in the Era of Social Media, Abram references a study that found social media use was associated with increased anorexia by promoting thin ideals and facilitating access to communities of people in anorexic behaviors. Instead of social media platforms helping young adults, it hurts them by stimulating ideas of anorexia through pro-anorexic posts and pushing users to partake in such anorexic activities. In the article wastingaway.com, Mike Mariani tells the story of a young girl named Natalia who struggled with eating disorders. Mariani writes, if she, Natalia, ever started to feel sick or hungry, she would visit blogs that flaunted lines like Kate Moss's infamous mantra, "Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels." Lines like these haunted Natalia, reminding her not to eat, pushing her over the brink of starvation. Social media promotes eating disorders, but the Bible promotes a healthy relationship between man and food. 1 Corinthians 10:31 tells us, so whether you eat, drink, or whatever you do it all to the glory of God. The Bible calls us to honor our Father in heaven, and when we honor him, we are given hope. Natalia was hungry to be skinny and hungry for food. She resisted her hunger for food so she could make her brother happy. Kate Moss resisted her hunger for food in order to obtain a certain celebrity look. Matthew 5:6 says, blessed are those who hunger for righteousness, for they will be filled. Instead of being hungry to look a certain way, we should be hungry for God. The Bible offers hope, while celebrities on social media influence people like Natalia to partake in anorexia, leaving them with no real hope, only real torment and pain. Along with eating disorders, social media inflicts pain by negatively impacting young adults and teenagers' mental health. Facebook platforms are now one of the main platforms that promotes poor mental health. According to Abrams, one line of study found that Facebook use over time was associated with declines in self-reported physical and mental health. Poor mental health does not only lie on Facebook, but is visible through all other sites of social media through the use of hashtags. What are hashtags? They are a tool used like links in the commentary section of social media platforms. For example, if you're like my dad and you like to go metal detecting, you may watch a lot of metal detecting videos on YouTube. If you look at the commentary section on these YouTube videos, you will see hashtags like hashtag metal detector or hashtag treasure finder. If you click on one of these hashtags, they will take you to another page with more videos about other metal detectors and their treasure finds. This is the same with all hashtags. In hearing the hidden hashtags, the authors explain the horrors which were found while doing an inner working of social media. Alex Smith was shocked with his discovery, saying, I soon found myself in a community of young people sharing experiences of a range of mental health issues. Hashtag Deb, hashtag Cat, #MySecretFamily, and #Annie are just a few of the hidden conversation keys I came across. If you're unfamiliar with these hashtags, they translate as anorexia, suicide, depression, self-harm, self-injury, anxiety, and mental illnesses, and were accompanied by visceral images of self-injury, extreme weight loss, and morbid image content. These hashtags have built a community for themselves, a community that leads people away from healing and towards more websites embracing mental illnesses, suicide, and eating disorders. Social media is advertising these abhorrent tendencies to our youth today. Studies have shown that the use of social media platforms such as Facebook may be related to negative signs and symptoms of depression, anxiety, and stress. Furthermore, social media can create pressure to create the stereotype that others want to see. Social media is slowly killing our youth, not only with poor mental health, but with the pressure to post and a way to be accepted. Because our youth crave false validation, they are willing to do anything to obtain status on social media. In the article, Please Follow Me, Does Validation on Social Media Tell You What Type of Person You Are? Teens are characterized by asking for likes, even paying to get more validation. These young adults now have low levels of agreeableness, trust, warmth, and modesty. Teens are willing to leave their old, happy, healthy selves behind in order to be accepted. Karim writes, some teens experience anxiety from social media related to fear of loss. Because teens fear losing followers and losing their popularity on social media, they have developed unnecessary anxiety, an anxiety that pushes them to want validation, a validation from people they have never met and do not truly love them. We see our youth struggling with anxiety, eating disorders, and poor mental health, yet we stand by and do nothing about it. Why is that? Well, for one reason, many people argue that social media actually benefits young people's mental health by offering support through pages related to mental health and other issues. What they don't understand is that it's hard for them to tell what is help from what is harm. It is true that social media platforms have been found to be helpful in providing social support for people experiencing similar health conditions. For instance, people who struggle with eating disorders or anorexia can come together and uplift each other. And adolescents frequently utilize social media and the internet to seek information about mental health. Let's say you are a 16-year-old girl who has a friend that struggles with eating disorders or anxiety or depression. So you go on Instagram or Facebook and you type in eating disorders, anxiety, and depression in hopes to find a well-recommended doctor or even uplifting quotes to send to your friend. But you slowly start to become confused. Because while one post may be a picture of a well-known doctor, the next post under it seems to be advertising and romanticizing the ideas of eating disorders and depression. Mariani writes, the difficulty, though, is that it can be impossible to distinguish between sites that are refugees from ravages of anorexia and mental health and those that are bastions of recruitment for it. Social media can't be helpful for young people's mental health because we can't decipher what is help from what is harm. While young adults and teens go on social media platforms for satisfaction and validation, they often find themselves in a deeper, darker hole. They find themselves in need of something to fulfill them. Social media has led young people into believing lies about their body, lies telling them they are flawed and must be accepted by others, lies telling them they can't eat and can't have a good, healthy relationship with food, lies promising them help but leading them towards suffering, lies leaving them hopeless, desperate, and in need of something greater. God is that something greater. He is the author and founder of life. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works. Because we are Christ's workmanship, we should not let what others say or do on social media define what we do with our bodies. The God who loves you also made you. He designed you, your physique, your personality, every inch of you, and knows you completely. God created what he loved and loves what he created. So why do young adults and teenagers try to change their appearances in order to please the world or to be what the world calls beautiful? Instead of trying to please the world, we should praise God, for we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Being fearfully and wonderfully made means God made you just as he wants you. Instead of seeking validation from social media, instead of wanting to be like the influencers on social media, we should seek to be pleasing and honorable to God. We should be depending on God because only he can leave us complete and fulfilled. Parents, you may be thinking to yourselves, what should I do? My child already has social media. Should I ban it? No, not necessarily. If your teen has social media, the best way to keep them safe is to be like Grace's parents. Talk with your teen. Ask them about the people they follow. Ask them if they think these people are good. If the influencers are not uplifting your teenager, then speak truth into your teenager's life. If your daughter has Instagram or TikTok, make an account yourself. Follow the people she follows. Encourage her to take social media cleanses. Encourage her, listen to her, and be involved. Don't trust social media with your youth's well-being. Just because it is on the internet does not mean it is true, pure, or uplifting. For young adults who do not live with their parents, get an accountability partner. Find a friend who is willing to speak truth and grace into your life. Let them see the people you follow. Let them be part of your social media life. Because of the mass growth of technology, our youth have easy access to social media platforms now, and while these platforms are meant to be useful, they have turned into something else, something that harms our youth through body dysphoria, eating disorders, and poor mental health. Instead of teens becoming dependent on social media, they should be depending on God. We have seen what social media platforms can do to the minds and bodies of teenagers and young adults. If we don't stand together and come alongside of our young adults, their future will not be as bright as it should. So I encourage you, parents and students alike, to stand together and fight the good fight against social media platforms, uplifting one another, encouraging one another, and supporting one another when it comes to social media. Thank you.